So Keith, you lay a very strong case about how we're going to have this domino effect in Europe. We're going to go from Spain to France to Italy. It's pretty much all going to collapse in a heap. And then you're saying it's coming back to the U.S.
Yeah, there are 3 AAA ratings in the world that are just nonsensical AAA ratings: France, the UK, and the U.S. And the U.S. is last in terms of having to take the medicine. The UK, of course, has just had an election. The people have voted. In this country, we're going to come to the conclusion that piling debt upon debt upon debt is bad. Ben Bernanke said he was going to cut the Fed's balance sheet to $1 trillion. Last week, it went up week over week to $2.35 trillion, and he's buying mortgage-backed securities again. It's unsustainable, and I think that he's going to be voted out.
So what happens? How does this play out? Are we going to, is the market going to crash? How does it play out for real?
Like, markets don't lie, people do, and particularly politicians. So what's going to happen now, the S&P has broken what we call our long-term tail of support, which is at 1070, and it just broke this morning. So what I think now is that the bear market in U.S. equities has officially begun. If you can get over 1070, maybe I'll change my mind. But for now, provided that the government continues to create money from the heavens with fiat currency policy and the S&P remains broken from 1070, there's a lot of downside from here.
And you think the trigger event for this is debt maturities when we have to refinance?
Yeah, that's a great point. So debt maturities in the U.S., what a lot of people haven't been on top of is that our symptoms or our problems are the exact same as some of these Western European markets. Now, debt maturities in the U.S., if you look at what we have to roll over as a percentage of total debt, starting in 2011 is when it really kicks in. But between 2011 and 2012, you have to roll over 40% of U.S. debt. If you compare that to the UK, they only have to roll over 18% of UK gilts. So the U.S. is going down the road to perdition, and it's not going to end well.
Now, Paul Krugman, who has won a Nobel Prize, is saying that people should just stop worrying about debt because we've gone through these in the past. World War II, it worked out fine.
It's the Keynesian elixir. I mean, people, F.A. Hayek also won a Nobel Prize, but the problem was that he won it in 1974, and Krugman won it in modern times when it's fashionable to create money from the heavens. But there's this guy in 1974, the head of the Austrian School of Economics, who said, don't do that. He's the opposite of Keynes. And basically, he was right. All the Keynesians got absolutely murdered, run right over during the late 70s because they didn't respect the value of money. When you burn your currency, you promote inflation, and you enrage your citizens.
So if we elect you president, what are you going to do? You're going to immediately cut fiscal spending, screw the economy, start to deal with the debt problem?
Well, the first thing,
how do you get us out of it?
The first thing that I would do is respect capital. 0% rate of return for the hard-earned savings in this economy, particularly for the boomers who are retiring or anybody who's been fiscally conservative. You got to give them a rate of return. You can't give them 0. Japan's tried, doesn't work. We're trying it, it's not going to work. So the first thing I would do is raise rates. Now, when you say that, people get all nervous. Well, the alternative to 0% interest rates, I can see it on the screen today, and I saw it in 2008. It doesn't work either. So that's what I'd start with, is definitely raising the cost of capital.
So you go there, you raise the cost of capital, presumably that crimps the bank profits. Everyone begins to worry about the banks again, which, good. Let them worry. Let the banks go through a rough time. What about actual spending, though? Because that's where the Keynesians will really come in.
Absolutely.
And say, you've got to keep the foot on the gas.
Yeah, and if you look at, currently, I think the best work on the deficit numbers is actually from the GAO, the former head of the GAO, which David Walker just wrote this great book called Come Back America. It's unsustainable to have these levels of spending, particularly on Medicare and Medicaid Social Security. So what we have to do is kind of reset the bar for modern day times. These plans were set in place when the average life expectancy was 65 years old. We outlive our liabilities basically at this point, and I think that you got to really get a huge cut on some of these kind of entitlements.
And do you do that now with the economy on flimsy footing, or do you wait until we're back stronger?
Well, this is the Keynesian elixir, right? This is the Japanese have gone through this for 20 years. They live in the fear of changing now because it's just going to end us. So they've never changed. So what you've created is this massive bureaucracy of latency, or this very poorly operating economic system. And I think that what you need to do is actually take the hard or the penalty shots right now, fix it so the fix happens faster because it's inevitable.
So that's what we should do. What are we going to do? Are we Japan?
Yeah, we're absolutely Japan. But Ben Bernanke, if there was a Japanese name for Arthur Burns, which is the guy at the Fed, obviously from 1970 to 78, that's Ben Bernanke. It's unfortunate, it's sad, he looks like a nice man, I'm sure he's a nice gentleman, but he's an economic historian. He's not a risk manager. He doesn't respect the value of capital, certainly in terms of the expansion of the balance sheet or the cost of capital, and I think we need to get rid of him.
Thanks, Keith.